What if I told you that the secret to mastering your future is already inside your head? But here's the twist. Most people never learn how to control it. Welcome back to the podcast that turns books into blueprints for a better life. Today we're diving into a mind-shifting masterpiece, How to Own Your Own Mind by Napoleon Hill, a book that's not just about thinking positively. It's about thinking powerfully and deliberately to take full control of your destiny. In this episode, we'll unpack how Hill's conversations with billionaire Andrew Carnegie revealed timeless truths about self-discipline, focused thought, and building a life of unstoppable mental clarity. And here's the deal. Stick with us till the end for a clear summary you can apply today, plus a surprise twist that might just change the way you approach every decision in your life. Ready? To unlock the door to your greatest asset, your own mind, let's get into it.
We spend so much time just reacting, don't we, to the news, what people are saying, things that pop up unexpectedly.
Yeah, constantly responding.
But what if the real power, the power to actually shape your life, isn't out there, but it's, well, right inside your own head? You're thinking. So today we're doing a deep dive into this really fascinating, kind of forgotten work. It's called How to Own Your Own Mind.
Right, and it's basically distilled wisdom from Napoleon Hill's Mental Dynamite. These were writings that came out just before World War II.
That's before. And then, understandably, with everything going on, they sort of faded from view until, well, pretty recently.
And what's so compelling, I think, is how relevant these ideas still are. Decades ago, Hill was stressing this need for conscious thought before you act.
Thinking before acting. Seems simple, but maybe not so easy.
Exactly. It's about really developing that ability to spot opportunities, the real ones. And to define your main ambition, Hill calls it your definite major purpose.
Definite major purpose, okay.
And fundamentally, it's about mastering your thoughts, so they actually push you towards those goals you've set, taking control of your own mind, basically.
Taking the reins, I like that. And yeah, that's our mission today, really. We want to explore the biggest ideas from these chapters.
The ones that can really help.
Exactly. The ones that can give you, listening right now, more clarity, more control over how you think, and hopefully help you move intentionally towards your goals and spot those opportunities you might be missing.
Yeah, the ones that might be right under your nose.
Okay, so let's get into it. First up is this concept Hill calls controlled attention.
Controlled attention. So at its core, it's really the skill, isn't it? The skill of directing all your mental energy towards one specific goal.
Like a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Focusing the sun.
That's a great analogy, yeah. Amplifying that energy. And Hill says this is foundational. It's essential for what he calls creative vision and also organized thought. We'll definitely get into those. But it's not just about, passively focusing. What's interesting is how other principles Hill talks about can actually sharpen this focus.
Right, like going the extra mile, doing more than asked.
Exactly. That and the mastermind principle, that synergy you get collaborating with others, even just having strong belief, strong faith, all these things, Hill argues, they intensify your controlled attention. They boost your confidence in what you're aiming for.
So the key thing is really concentrating, focusing that attention on one major goal, not spreading yourself too thin across loads of different things.
Precisely. Don't dilute your mental power. And Hill, he backs this up with stories, examples of people who achieved amazing things.
And the common thread was
this intense focus, this concentration on just one main aim. It wasn't about multitasking. It was about directing that mental energy really precisely.
Okay, that makes sense. Which, I guess, leads us pretty naturally to the next idea, creative vision.
Ah, yes, creative vision. Hill introduces this through a really fascinating conversation he apparently had with Andrew Carnegie. Way back.
Andrew Carnegie.
The still guy.
The very same, back in 1908. And Carnegie defined creative vision as this specific mental state. He saw it as a powerful mix, your conscious mind, your subconscious, and your imagination all working together.
Working in concert.
Yeah, to generate new ideas, but also to build on old ones.
Yeah.
And this is where he makes a really important distinction about two kinds of imagination.
Two kinds.
Indeed. Carnegie talks about synthetic imagination and creative imagination.
Synthetic. Sounds a bit artificial.
Well, maybe not artificial, but more like synthesis. It's basically taking ideas or concepts that already exist and just rearranging them, putting them together in new combinations.
Okay, like remixing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about that telegraph operator Hill mentions. He saw how merchandising worked, he knew how telegraphs worked, and he thought, what if I apply these selling principles using the mail?
Ah, so mail order. Boom. The first big mail order business. He didn't invent selling, didn't invent mail. He just combined them in a totally new way.
And Carnegie thought that was the main one people used.
Yeah, he emphasized that most successful people primarily use this synthetic imagination. The big insight isn't always needing some earth-shattering new idea. Sometimes it's just looking at what's already there and thinking, how can I combine this differently?
That's a really useful way to think about it. It's not always about that lightning bolt moment. Sometimes it's just a fresh perspective on the familiar.
Precisely. But then there is the other type, creative imagination.
Okay, and that sounds more like the lightning bolt, the sudden spark.
That's more like it, yeah. Creative imagination is described as the faculty, the part of the mind where those hunches come from, those flashes of inspiration.
Uh-huh.
It's about conceiving entirely new ideas. Think Thomas Edison and the light bulb.
Right, big one.
Sure, the principles of electricity resistance, they were kind of known. But his ability to combine them practically, and maybe just as importantly, his persistence. Sticking with it through failure after failure.
And say something like 10,000 failures?
He did! That really shows creative imagination in action. Or think about Alexander Graham Bell and the telephone. Maybe sparked by his desire to help his wife with her hearing.
And that not giving up part, that persistence, seems crucial for both types, doesn't it? Edison's story really hammers that home.
Absolutely vital.
But it also sounds like having a really strong desire is important. You mentioned Bell's wife. Hill talks about obsessional desire, right?
He does, yes. Hill points out that an intense, almost obsessive desire, often fueled by a really powerful motive like Bell's empathy, his sympathy for his wife acts like a turbocharger.
Okay.
It engages the subconscious mind, ignites that creative vision. The stronger the emotional tie to the desire, the harder the subconscious works on it.
So emotion fuels it.
And as Carnegie pointed out, this isn't just for huge inventions. Even in something like that mail order business, it's about applying old ideas in new ways. Innovation isn't always revolutionary.
Okay, so we have these two kinds of imagination, synthetic and creative. Both need persistence. Both are fueled by desire. But how do you actually, stimulate your imagination? How do you get it going?
Well, Carnegie actually laid out 5 key sources. First, and maybe most importantly, a keen desire.
Right.
He's very clear, this is the starting point for all achievement. No desire, no spark.
Gotta want it. Makes sense. What else?
Second, and the mastermind principle. That idea of exchanging thoughts, brainstorming, but in harmony with others to solve problems. He credited a lot of his own steel industry's success to his mastermind group.
Interesting. Collaboration is fuel. Okay, number 3.
Third is going the extra mile. That habit of doing more than you're paid for, more than expected. He believed that often sparks new ideas for providing better service, finding new angles.
Yeah, I can see that. Pushing beyond the routine makes you see things differently. What are the last 2?
Fourth is applied faith. Carnegie saw this as absolutely essential, especially for a creative imagination. His view was pretty blunt. If you don't really believe you can achieve something, you probably won't tap into that creative power.
So belief is crucial.
And the fifth is organized individual endeavor, basically the act of planning. Making plans inherently requires using your imagination.
Okay. Desire, mastermind, extra mile, faith, planning. That's quite a list.
He also mentions, interestingly, that fear can sometimes stimulate imagination. Self-preservation kicks in.
Fight or flight, yeah. Your brain goes into overdrive. But okay, if imagination is so powerful, why does it seem like, not many people have a really highly developed one? Is it just something you're born with?
Not according to Carnegie. He's very clear. Imagination is like a muscle. It weakens if you don't use it.
Use it or lose it.
Exactly. Most people simply don't actively exercise their imagination, so it gets weaker over time. It's not innate talent, it's lack of practice.
Okay, now let's clarify something. We've talked about imagination, and we've talked about creative vision. They sound kind of similar. Are they the same thing?
That's a really important clarification. Carnegie makes a point of saying they are not the same.
Oh, okay.
He stresses that creative vision is more than just imagination. It's an acquired ability. It has 2 main parts.
2 parts.
First, having a really sharp ability to recognize opportunities that actually align with your goals. Seeing the potential.
Okay, recognizing opportunity.
And second, developing the habit of grabbing those opportunities and acting on them. Acting through that organized individual endeavor, the planning and action part.
So imagination is involved, but creative vision is bigger. It includes the action.
Exactly. Imagination is just one piece of the puzzle. Carnegie actually says imagination, both kinds, is maybe only 1/10 of what constitutes creative vision.
Wow, only 1/10. So what else is in there?
Well, remember those 10 factors we touched on earlier. Being alert to opportunity, having that definite purpose, sound plans, accurate knowledge, cooperation, willpower, controlled attention.
Ah, right, the list. Including going the extra mile, pleasing personality, and then using both types of imagination.
Precisely. So imagination is a tool within the broader skill set of creative vision. And he argued that the industrial powerhouse America became was built by people with this creative vision. They're the builders, the optimists, the ones driving progress.
And underlying all that development of creative vision is motive, the why.
Yes, that driving force that makes someone want to develop and use this vision in the first place.
Okay, this all definitely has a strong American flavor, focused on the individual. Carnegie talks about that context, right? The American way of life.
Absolutely. He was a huge believer in it. He felt the American system, emphasizing personal initiative, free enterprise, the freedoms in the Constitution. He thought that naturally nurtured creative vision.
Freedom to pursue your goals.
Exactly. But he also had warnings. He cautioned against anything that might limit individual effort or discourage that personal drive. His philosophy was really about success coming from helping others succeed, mutual benefit.
It's that rising tide lifts all boats idea, maybe.
Something like that. But he worried, too. He wondered if, too much ease, too much abundance might actually weaken that pioneering spirit.
Complacency. Taking things for granted.
Yeah, exactly. He really stressed that you have to consistently apply these sound principles for success, and he warned against just chasing money for money's sake.
Right. Better to become indispensable by providing real value, real service.
That was his view. And he was definitely wary of shortcuts to getting rich. Build value, don't just seek quick wins.
Okay. Now, to really make this concrete, the book gives some great examples,
Mm-hmm.
both of people lacking creative vision and people using it powerfully.
These are really telling. There's that story about an acquaintance of Carnegie's. Carnegie apparently told him to invest just $5,000 in Henry Ford's new car company, early days.
Wow. $5,000 in early Ford. What happened?
The guy didn't do it. Just couldn't see the potential, lack of vision, missed out massively, obviously. It really shows how blindness to opportunity can cost you.
Ouch. Yeah, that's a painful what if. But then there are the positive stories, right? Like National Cash Register.
That's a great one. Sales were down. The guy in charge, Chalmers, he didn't just dictate solutions. He got his salesmen together and had a really frank talk. What's really going on here?
And that worked.
Apparently, yes. That open dialogue shifted their whole mindset, their attitude. And almost instantly, business picked up significantly. It shows the power of just tackling issues head on and getting everyone aligned mentally.
So it's not just individual vision, but collective mindset too.
Yeah.
And the book uses examples beyond just business, right? Historical stuff.
Oh, yeah. Big historical moments. Think about signing the Declaration of Independence. Pretty audacious, right? Or the moral courage needed to fight for freeing slaves.
Huge undertaking.
Or inventing the telescope, the airplane. Emerson writing Compensation. The incredible success of Coca-Cola. Even the Sermon on the Mount. Hill presents all of these as examples of creative vision achieving things that seemed impossible.
It really does reframe history when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
And the point is, behind almost any big success, there's someone with this creative vision, even if they're not famous.
That's the idea, often working quietly behind the scenes. And Carnegie, he felt this knowledge, these principles he was sharing, that was his real fortune, more valuable than all his money.
Wow. That's quite a statement.
He was optimistic, He believed this philosophy of achievement would catch on, that people seeking self-improvement would adopt it and spread it by example. But again, he warned against complacency, the potential erosion of that spirit of free enterprise.
So it's about individual growth, but also the health of the whole system. Now, for anyone listening thinking, okay, this sounds great, but where could I apply this? The book actually gives suggestions, doesn't it? Even though it's old.
It's amazing how relevant some of them still feel. He talked about improving comic strips. Think about today's digital media, more educational radio programs, better kids' books. Apparently a publisher back then was desperate for good ones.
Still relevant needs today.
Finding new services for gas stations, better road materials, using empty car space for deliveries, ride-sharing and delivery apps, transforming education with dynamic content, radio, talking pictures.
He practically predicted the internet and modern media.
Yeah.
And religion, advertising.
Yeah, making religion more practical, using mastermind groups in churches, new ideas for printing. Advertising, he mentions, one essay reaching millions, even telephone sales for women. It just shows how broadly creative vision can be applied.
Absolutely. And then there are the personal stories, the individuals who turn things around using these ideas.
Those are powerful. Like the Firestone salesman, he read a book strongly implied to be Hill's think and Grow Rich, got fired up, made a solid plan, believed in it totally, and landed himself a management job. The book didn't give him magic powers, it just woke something up.
Unlocking potential that was already there.
Exactly. Then there's the insurance salesman whose success shot up so dramatically after finding creative vision that the local paper called it a miracle. People were apparently storming bookstores looking for the miracle book.
Ah, that's quite an impact. And the cafeteria worker.
Yeah, earning $45 a week. But he used creative vision to see himself as an owner. Didn't have the money, but he sold his vision, his plan, to an investor. Within a year, his own cafeteria was a huge success. It shows the power of a clear vision and communicating it effectively.
Inspire others with your idea.
And don't forget the Wright brothers. Their sheer persistence, their creative vision got them flying when everyone else said it was impossible. Hill uses these stories to say, look, maybe people aren't idle because there are no opportunities. Maybe it's because they haven't activated their own creative vision yet.
It puts the power back in the individual's hands. Okay, so we've got creative vision, but underpinning all of this seems to be the power of thought itself, how to think accurately.
Right. This section really dives into mastering your own mind. It introduces the subconscious as the link to what Hill calls infinite intelligence.
Infinite intelligence, what does that mean exactly? Is it religious?
Not necessarily in a conventional religious sense, though it can be interpreted that way. It's more like a universal source of knowledge, creativity, intuition that your subconscious can tap into. But the key point is this. Both your conscious and subconscious minds run on habits.
Habits.
So you need to consciously build good thinking habits, because just letting your mind drift won't necessarily lead you where you want to go.
And the book warns against relying on just opinions, bias, emotions, even your senses.
Absolutely. It says our senses can be easily fooled. Don't just react based on fear or excitement or prejudice. It even gives these acid tests ways to check if information is actually factual.
Acid tests, like what?
Things like, who is saying this? What's their motive? Do they have a bias? Is their judgment sound? Can this be verified? What's their reputation? Are they being overly dramatic? It's about critical thinking, basically. Being a smart consumer of information.
Which is more important than ever now, right? With information everywhere.
Totally. Don't just swallow everything whole. Question it. Evaluate it. And it also lists common enemies of thinking clearly.
Enemies, like what?
Letting emotions totally override your reason. Strong fear, love, hate. Negative emotions like anger, jealousy, even things like uncontrolled enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is good, but if it's not grounded in reality, it can warp your judgment.
So keep a level head. Be questioning.
Be an eternal question mark, as the book says. Question everything to get to the facts. Don't just trust your senses, your emotions, even your memory, without some serious self-discipline. They're unreliable on their own.
Okay. And then it talks about heredity, social and physical.
Yeah. Physical heredity is our genes, our biology. But social heredity, that's the influence of our environment, our upbringing, our culture that massively shapes our thinking habits and beliefs.
And that's where opinions often come from.
Yeah.
Not necessarily logic, but just what we absorbed growing up.
Exactly. Our family, friends, maybe our political or religious group. Hill points out how few people actually stop and examine why they hold the opinions they do. They just have them. Inherited through social heredity.
So true independent thinkers, people who consciously develop their own thoughts instead of just going with the flow, are pretty rare.
That's the implication. Taking ownership of your mind means becoming aware of these influences and choosing your own path. And this leads directly to the idea of controlled habit.
Controlled habit. As a foundation for organized thinking.
Yes. Because while changing your whole environment might be tough, you can control your habits. Organized thinking, therefore, is about using your willpower, guided by reason, to deliberately build the thought habits you want, driven by your goals.
And there are voluntary habits we build on purpose, and involuntary ones we just pick up.
Right. Those involuntary ones from the environment can lead to getting stuck. Voluntary habits built through repetition because you have a strong motive are the key to progress.
And Carnegie called this organized thought mental dynamite. Powerful stuff.
Hugely powerful. Constructive if controlled by good habits, destructive if not. He saw it as tapping into that infinite intelligence through these voluntary habits.
And he brings up the mastermind again here.
Crucial. He believed no single brain has all the answers. You need that collaborative energy. And he even mentions a specific kind of spiritual power that comes from a harmonious alliance with a woman.
Interesting. And building these habits.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be super hard.
The mind forms habits constantly anyway. The trick is self-discipline, consciously choosing what you focus on, driven by that definite purpose until it becomes automatic.
And the benefits. Why bother with all this mental organizing?
Big benefits. Clearer purpose, better plans, more accurate information, better cooperation, stronger willpower, more self-reliance, a more pleasing personality, doing more than expected, going the extra mile, more enthusiasm, and ultimately, peace of mind, happiness.
Sounds pretty good. Like cleaning up a messy garden.
Great analogy. An unorganized mind grows weeds, random, unhelpful thoughts. Organize it, cultivate it, and you get productive results. The vision is a world where people do work they love, are more productive, less conflict, but it all starts with organizing that powerful thinking engine through habit.
Again, the mastermind is key to making that organized thinking really effective.
Now, the book actually includes specific quotes from Carnegie himself talking more about organized thinking.
Oh, cool. What did he say?
Well, he really believed thoughts can pass between minds, especially negative ones if you're in close contact. Really underscores choosing your company wisely.
Mental contagion.
And he stresses again. Mastermind is vital, but it starts with you controlling your thinking habits first. You got to get your own house in order before you can effectively build with others.
Makes sense. Build the foundation first.
And forming habits, it's natural. Self-discipline just lets you choose the habit by focusing intensely on your motive, your purpose, until it becomes an obsession, almost.
Obsession. That sounds intense.
Intense, but powerful. He says any of the 7 positive motives, or even negative ones you transmute, you channel, can fuel that major purpose.
Yeah.
And self-discipline. It's almost the same thing as organized thinking. Much easier when you have that strong emotional desire driving you.
So procrastination is basically a symptom of weak motive and disorganized thoughts.
That's his take. Organized thinking helps you use your time, your abilities constructively, channeling that mental power instead of letting it dissipate.
Keep the mind busy with good stuff, or the weeds take over.
Exactly. Actively engage it with what you want to think about, and align your work with what genuinely interests you. You'll get more value, more satisfaction. He even suggests employers should try harder to match people to suitable roles. Maybe offer incentives for the less fun jobs.
Right. The core message seems to be self-discipline plus strong motive, easier habit formation, especially if you're genuinely interested.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the theory of controlled attention. The book digs deeper into seeing it in action with more examples.
Good. Let's see the practical side.
So controlled attention again. Combining all your mental faculties, focusing them on that definite purpose. How long you focus depends on the task, right? Carnegie's focus on steel was lifelong practically.
Okay. And this works for big organizations too, like a whole company having controlled attention.
In a way, yes. Think department stores, banks, railroads. They achieve a kind of collective controlled attention through specialization. Everyone has their role, their focus within the larger structure.
Ah, specialization. So for students, if you know your definite major purpose, you should specialize.
That's the advice. But if you're unsure, get a good general education first. Explore. Interestingly, he saw being a stenographer as a great starting point.
A stenographer, why?
Because you're right there observing, listening, learning directly from leaders, like a backstage pass to see how things really work.
Like an inside track. Okay.
Yeah.
But what if you pick a purpose and then hate it? Can
No.
you change?
Absolutely. If you genuinely dislike it or find something better, change. But he warns against chopping and changing just because things get difficult or you hit a temporary snag. Stick with something long enough to master it. Specialization again.
Got it. And he had advice for businessmen about politics.
Yeah, basically, if you want business success, probably stay out of politics. Focus is key. He also felt business and industry generally offered wider opportunities than maybe some professions that can get crowded.
Okay, and there's that story about the secretary getting promoted. The miracle.
Right. This young guy's promotion wasn't a miracle at all. It was the direct result of his habits. Going the extra mile, being thorough, enthusiastic, taking initiative, positive attitude, all that stuff.
He earned it through preparation and consistent action.
Exactly. Success isn't magic. It's earned. And successful executives, they master the important details but delegate the minor stuff using that mastermind principle effectively.
Delegate, but don't abdicate. And it comes back to choosing. Act based on emotion or based on will, guided by reason.
Will is safer when paired with reason, and understanding people's motives is crucial in everything. Education, relationships, everything. Carnegie even talks about the motives behind his own mission to share this philosophy.
He saw the American system as concentrating power for individual liberty.
Yeah, that the structure enables individual focus. He talked about corporations, stock exchanges allowing investment and flexibility. And well-run companies offer clear paths for promotion, which is a huge motivator.
So fundamentally, he saw the system as sound, rewarding contribution.
Yes. He felt improvements needed to come from individuals applying these principles, not necessarily tearing down the system. The biggest danger, he thought, was from people wanting to break up that concentrated power, which, in his view, ultimately benefited everyone.
Interesting perspective. The system rewards ambition based on what you contribute.
That was his core belief. Now, tied into all this is another huge factor: belief. The power of belief.
Ah, yes, belief. Seems essential.
The book uses some powerful historical examples. George Washington believing his underdog army could win.
Against the odds.
Edison believing in electric light when everyone else failed. James J. Hill believing in a railroad across the continent, starting with almost nothing. The Wright brothers believing in flight when people scoffed.
That sheer conviction.
It seems to be the common thread. The world belongs to those who believe is the message, and it needs to be positive belief. It's contagious. You just don't rise above mediocrity without believing in yourself and your purpose.
You have to believe it's possible first.
There's even a quote from a student thanking Hill for the freedom from fear that came from organizing his mind. But, and this is crucial, belief isn't enough on its own.
Right.
Action. Organized mind power needs belief, yes, but then it needs action. Passive belief gets you nowhere.
Which leads us perfectly to the next big theme, the absolute necessity of ascension.
Yes. Carnegie apparently hammered this home. Ascension, that should be a key word for this whole philosophy. Thinking is great, planning is great, but without action, it's just mental exercise.
Doesn't translate to the real world.
Exactly. Organized thought needs to be expressed through organized plans of action. That's how you grow mentally and spiritually. Practical experience, applying what you know, is way more valuable than just theory.
Ability is theory plus action.
Perfect summary. Knowledge without organized action is basically useless. Developing skill in organized thinking comes from coordinating your mind and body habits and coordinating with others, mastermind, but ascension is the catalyst.
So don't wait for perfect conditions. Start now.
Start now with whatever you have. The tools you need often show up once you start moving. Success depends more on the right attitude and decisive action than just having degrees or qualifications.
Thinking without action is like wasted energy.
Yeah.
Water over the dam.
Precisely. No power generated. What you become, who you are, is the result of your actions.
And that insurance salesman example comes up again here, right? The successful one.
Yes, the one who maybe wasn't the most naturally gifted, but had this incredible will, this drive for action, fueled by his definite major purpose.
His self-discipline was key.
His habits, his obsession with his goal. It shows how action, driven by purpose, gets results. And again, the book mentions choosing your associations carefully. Traits rub off good and bad.
Who you hang out with matters. Even family.
Especially family. The mental attitude at home is huge. It impacts everything, even your mastermind alliances. Your foundation needs to be strong.
Okay, so belief, action. What about desire? We touched on it, but it seems really central.
It really is. There's a striking line. If you can't get what you want, maybe you need to change what you want. Reevaluate your desires.
Interesting twist.
And that obsessional desire, the really intense kind, maybe based on love or another strong emotion, that's presented as the wellspring of all genius.
Wow. Obsession as the source of genius.
It also talks again about how minds influence each other in alliances, modifying thoughts, and how some thought energies just don't mix, like fear and faith. They can't occupy the same mental space.
And controlled attention lets you choose which one dominates.
Exactly. The mastermind alliance is controlled attention in its highest form, constantly reinforcing your purpose. Applied faith boosts concentration, fosters that positive attitude, kills doubt and procrastination. And organized endeavor planning, testing with allies, solidifies that faith. Master the principles, master yourself.
It's all interconnected, a whole system for self-mastery.
Yeah.
Okay, let's circle back one more time to controlled attention itself. It seems so foundational.
It really is. The book talks about the chemistry of the brain, how minds affect each other. Uses an analogy. You can mix harmless chemicals and create a poison. Similarly, combining certain thought patterns can be destructive.
So be mindful of your mental chemistry.
Right. And it gives a practical example. using controlled attention to acquire money. Needs definiteness of purpose, total focus, eliminating fear and doubt, self-discipline, creating equivalent value, auto-suggestion, positive self-talk.
And Edison's invention formula gets broken down again.
Yeah, showing all the principles at play, definite purpose, relentless focus, no impossible for him, using existing knowledge, mastermind, controlled attention, auto-suggestion, perseverance, willpower,
Yeah.
ignoring failures, self-discipline, unwavering belief, auto-suggestion. It's all there.
He embodied the whole philosophy.
And John Wanamaker, the merchant, he used controlled attention to solve funding problems, just intense focused thinking. He believed any problem could be solved if you focused your mind on it intensely enough.
That's powerful belief.
Yep.
And there are quotes from others, too.
Lots. Wanamaker, Wright brothers, Woolworth, Pullman, Rosenwald, Chrysler, all saying essentially the same thing. Concentrate your energy on one main purpose. Controlled attention is key.
Even FDR during the Depression.
Presented as controlled attention on a national scale, unifying leaders, the public, on one goal, restore confidence, combat fear with focused, positive action.
Tackle the hard problems first with focus.
That's another tip. And the story of Cyrus Curtis saving the Saturday Evening Post, a testament to grinding it out with controlled attention and purpose despite huge challenges.
These stories really bring it to life. And the American way of life itself, born from this kind of focused effort.
And sacrifice, yes. The Mormons are used as another example. Forced into self-reliance by adversity, they use unity of purpose, the mastermind, to achieve economic stability without charity. Their positive attitude, lack of bitterness, help them gain acceptance later.
Fascinating. Shared focus, positive mindset, overcoming huge odds. Okay, finally, the book wraps up by talking about human relationships and prayer.
Yeah, it acknowledges the world's conflicts, the need for more harmonious relationships, suggests learning from groups who found harmony, like the Mormons, and it reframes prayer.
How so?
Not just ritual, but as a mature activity for personal integration, connecting with that infinite source of all energy, a way to strengthen yourself, repair deficiencies, connect to something higher, even if it's hard to describe.
So less about asking for things, more about alignment and strength.
That seems to be the idea, and the impact is positive, body and soul. The overall point is, lasting success, personal or societal, needs mutual confidence, harmony, not fear, not manipulation.
And negative stuff like selfishness, greed, envy, they destroy harmony and peace of mind.
Exactly. And controlled attention can help you eliminate those negative states. And true love, that's presented as spiritual harmony, the highest form of human connection beyond just sentiment or sex, real oneness.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot to take in. So if we boil it all down, the core message of how to own your own mind seems to be what?
It's that mastering your own thinking, using tools like controlled attention, developing creative vision, driving it all with a clear, definite major purpose and a strong motive. That's the fundamental key, isn't it? It's how you unlock your potential, navigate life, spot opportunities.
And these aren't just fuzzy ideas. They're practical tools, backed up by all these examples of real people achieving real things in all sorts of fields.
Exactly. Real-world application across the board.
So for you listening, the real takeaway, the challenge perhaps, is to start thinking about these ideas. How can you apply them? Maybe just start by being more aware of your own thought habits. Where's your focus going right now?
And consciously start directing it towards what truly matters to you.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe something for you to chew on.
Yeah. What sleeping giant of creative vision might be inside you right now, just waiting for the right spark, the right motive to wake it up and completely change your path.
If you made it this far, you're already ahead of 99% of people who never invest in their own mindset. But here's the catch. If you stop here, you risk getting left behind, because every week we break down powerful books just like How to Own Your Own Mind, packed with the kind of insights schools never taught you, but life demands you master. So do yourself a favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Check the links in the description for bonus tools, book summaries, and exclusive resources that'll help you go even deeper. And if you're serious about leveling up, don't miss our next episodes. Now let's jump straight into our panel discussion, where we'll unpack the boldest ideas from Hill's book and show you how to turn them into real-world results. Let's own our minds together